everyone, welcome to A Stitch in Time. Today is Tuesday, February 8th, 2022, and this is episode 209. I'm Carol, also known as Knits and Pearls on Ravelry, and I live in the Fraser Valley of British Columbia, Canada, not too far east of Vancouver. Hope you've all had a good week. Mine's been mostly good, especially the weekend. We were more social than we've been in a long time, and we went out both Friday and Saturday nights and had some fun and games with friends and family. So I'll tell you more about that later, but first we have a lot of knitting to talk about, including a finished project. So stick around. Make yourself comfortable, find something to work on. Before I get into all that though, just a reminder that the Year of the Stash Make-Along is taking place in the A Stitch in Time podcast Ravelry group. There are two components, a general Year of the Stash Make-Along thread and also a personal sock yarn club, which is a monthly knit along. So head on over to the Ravelry group, read the first post in each of the designated threads, and that will give you a really good idea about all the rules and guidelines. Just a reminder that some of the threads are no chatter threads, and if you do happen to post in them without thinking, I will remove your post, but don't take it personally. It's just to keep it chatter free so it's easier for me to draw prizes at the appropriate time. I like how some of you are adding photos of your completed projects to the planning and tally thread. That's a really great way to keep track of all the things that you have made so far this year and then throughout the year. Thinking about doing that myself. I never thought about doing that, but I think it's a cool way to add a visual or have a visual sense of just what you've accomplished. All right, finished project. You have not seen these socks for a while. I looked at my notes. I began them back in January, and I think I knit the first sock, or not January, excuse me, July of last year. I think I knit the first sock relatively quickly, and then I cast on the second sock and did the ribbing, and there they have sat. And this is a pair that I really wanted to get sort of off my plate because it is the sixth and final pair of the Handmade Sock Society 4 by Helen Stewart. And here they are. These are the Scribbly Gum socks. And I knit them out of a skein from Songbird Yarn and Fibers. It's their 80/20 fingering in the Snow Bunting colorway. So it has all these various shades of white, kind of browny gray, brown, black, little bit orange speckles. And when I was looking at what Scribbly Gum looked like when Helen Stewart released the pattern, some of the photos kind of looked like this. So I thought that would be a great yarn. Plus I thought it would show off the pattern really well. I am really happy with how these knit up. I think they yarn and pattern go together really well. Start with a twisted 1x1 rib cuff. Then you have this, I'll turn this so you can get a better look. You have this Scribbly Gum pattern down the front. All these lines that go hither and thither. And the back is just plain knitting. Traditional heel flap gusset, my usual rounded toe. I always substitute in my own toe. Yeah, that's it. I kind of kicking myself that it's taken me so long. I know they've been in the back of my mind for a long time, and I keep thinking I really need to get back to those. Haven't really been in the mood. I am not sure why. And then when I picked these up sometime this past week, I was just determined to get them finished. So I basically knit on nothing else for several days and was able to, I think it was no, Monday morning maybe, yesterday morning. I can't remember. Anyway, I finally finished them, so I'm happy with that. I think it was yesterday morning. And then I blocked them. Yeah, it was yesterday. Then I blocked them, put them by the heat register to dry, and here we have them. So a lot of you enjoyed seeing my parade of finished shawls from the 5th Shawl Society, and so I thought I would do the same with my Handmade Sock Society finished projects. Just remind you what I knit. I was looking back, and it looks like the Sock Society began in February last year. I had a couple of people asking me if I knew if there was going to be one this year, and I don't know. I haven't heard. I just sign up for Helen Stewart's newsletter. You just can go to, I think it's curioushandmade.com, I think. Anyway, her website, you can sign up for her mailing list, and that's the best way to keep abreast of things. But just occurred to me when I looked at when these were when the club first began last year. In a way, I'm surprised that we haven't heard anything about it for this year, so I don't know if she's doing one this year or not. But the first socks last year were the Curling Mist socks. It's this ribbed pattern with little 1x1 cables on them. This was made to go with the, or complement the Curling Mist shawl. Although I guess actually the shawl came second. So the shawl was made to complement the Curling Mist socks. And Helen Stewart's original concept or inspiration for these socks was the mist curling in the eucalyptus forests. But I live in Canada. We don't have eucalyptus forests, but what we do have are evergreens, and lots of them. And I have many a time seen the mountains covered in mist, and so I looked for a yarn that was reminiscent of my surroundings here in Canada and here in British Columbia. Anyway, and came up with this one. So this is Zen Yarn Garden Serenity 20 in the blue spruce colorway. I thought that the yarn and pattern went together well, and happy with how those turned out. So the next pair of socks is the picnic blanket socks. So this was a really interesting design. It had this these horizontal gathers in them, and I wasn't quite sure if I was going to like them or not. I started thinking about the yarn choice, and I had received a skein of yarn through a Knit City yarn box that I thought might be appropriate. It was from the Yarn Therapist. It was the merino nylon fingering base in the Forest Fairy colorway. And it just reminded me of a field of wildflowers, and the white mini that came with it I thought looked like a white tablecloth that you could put down on the grass. So that was my inspiration for using this yarn. So here they are. You can see this really interesting ruffly pattern on them. The yarn was really cool. I didn't realize until I started, I think, winding it or knitting with it, that it's actually like a gradient. And you can see the color changes from lots of pink up here down to just green here. And I split the skein in half and worked at it from, I can't remember if it was from either end or if the change came midway through. It's been too long to remember. But I tried to make them as matchy as I could, and very happy with how they turned out too. So that was pair number 2. Pair number 3, I adore. Love everything about them. They were the Wild Bees socks, and this time I ended up actively looking for a skein of yarn that would complement this pattern. I pictured a golden color, and I just didn't have anything quite right in my stash. So I went down to one of my local yarn shops, which is mainly their own hand-dyed yarn. It is Black Cat Custom Yarn. And I found a skein of the Everyday Sock, which is their merino nylon base, in the Flower Bridge colorway. And actually, I think they were still closed because of COVID. I think I went on the website, gave them a call, and picked it up and hoped it was everything I wanted it to be, and it was. And so this is my pair of the Wild Bees socks. Here in person, this orange is much more, it's an orangey gold, and it's darker than it's appearing on camera, but I've often found that when I play it back for editing, the colors actually do turn up pretty well. Let's see if bringing it closer changes that at all. Yeah, maybe a little, not sure. Just a little bit darker than what you see here. You can see on the front of the sock this beautiful bees motif, or bee motif, I should say. And then this motif was also featured in the Wild Bees shawl that I showed you a couple of weeks ago. This one had an Eye of Partridge heel, and I think that looks nice the way the texture shows up on this tonal yarn. So yeah, so there's pair number 3, the Wild Bees socks. So pair number 4 was the Spinifex socks. And I didn't know what Spinifex was, but it's a kind of a seagrass. And I had a color in mind for this yarn. Unfortunately, it was a color that had been dyed by Sweet Georgia Yarns, but it was no longer available. And I tried actually it's up here. Hang on. I found this in a bag yesterday and rewound it. I had tried this yarn. It's called Kelpie. It's from Ancient Arts, but I wanted that color of green just to remind me of the seagrass that we see on the beaches here. Couldn't find it. Eventually just found a skein in my stash that was good enough. It was an old skein from Elan, was their A Series F05 Superwash Wool with Nylon, very fancy name, in the color Willow, which was color 23. And actually, when it all was said and done, I thought they turned out pretty well. So again, a 1x1 twisted rib. That seems to be Helen Stewart's favorite cuff. And it had this textured pattern going down the front. If I remember correctly, the stitch didn't really show up. And she suggested a modification, I think, to, let's see if I can bring that up here. I think you were supposed to purl the stitches after the pattern stitch, and then she said if you knit it instead, or if you knit the one to start with, I can't remember, it made it stand out a little bit more. And I did do that, and I was a lot happier with them because it seemed like a lot of work to go through to have a stitch that didn't really show up too well. But in the end, even though it wasn't quite the yarn I wanted a green that had a little bit more yellow to it. I was happy with them in the end. So those are the Spinifex socks. So the next pair is the Lavender Fields socks. And I had a skein and some really deep stash from when I used to work at one of our local yarn shops, which was a long time ago. I think I finished working there in 2008, I think it was. Anyway, I had a skein of yarn in my stash that was very close to the color of the lavender that was in my garden. And even though it wasn't fancy yarn, I decided to go with it. And yeah, so it was DGB Confetti Superwash. The color was 9035 Mauve. And it was a very simple design, mostly stockinette, as you can see, but had this pretty lace stitches at the top. I just realized I had turned I have a, can't think of the kind of light it's called. Anyway, I have a light back there that I don't usually turn on when I record, but I was recording another segment earlier and left it on. I think I'm gonna turn that off because I think it's interfering with the lighting a little bit, giving us some light from behind so it's shadowy in front. In any case, you can see it has this lace pattern and a picot edge. I have partridge heel. Very plain, very simple, but quite lovely, I thought. So yes, so that is a lot of finished projects, but one, of course, is new this week. So yes, I think I will turn off that light behind me and then tell you about some works in progress. There we go. I don't know if that's better or not. It'll actually be good. It'll give me a good indication of what works best. It is raining outside, so it's dark and gray. It was supposed to be sunny, or so I thought. I was expecting a much nicer day when I got up this morning, so the light's not fantastic coming through the window. Before I get on to my works in progress, I actually thought I'd give you another look at the baby sweater that I showed you last week, because I got some buttons over the weekend and completely finished it off. This is the Showered in Rainbows sweater. Let me just remind, look at my notes from last week. It's by Stephanie Lotfin, and I knit it from some opal glitter in the colorway Shine. So there you go. Got those buttons, just finish it off so nicely. Super happy with how that turned out. And then while we were out, I also picked up this cute little pair of jeans. Look at, with the little hearts on it, or on them. And then I was trying to find some onesies that would be bright and kind of match the sweater really well. I didn't find exactly what I wanted, but I did find this whole set of little onesies. They'll match the jeans well, and I thought that one especially would match the sweater. Some apples, and then that one's on the back. Anyway, so now that I've sewn those buttons on and shown you, then I can get those wrapped up and sent off to our nephew and his wife for their new little girl. Okay, so last week I had shown you a pair of socks I'd been working on, and I wasn't happy with how they were knitting up because the yarn was quite a bit darker at one end of the skein than the other. And so I had started a second sock from the inside of the skein and was going to frog my first sock. And I said I was going to put it away because I was going to start work on my February Personal Sock Yarn Club socks. But I did end up continuing to work on them, and I'll show you my progress. So the yarn I'm using is from Leo. It's called Leo and Roxy, and it is the 80/20 sock base. The colorway is Patches to Patches. Not sure if that's focusing or not. And then I am using just some leftovers from Ancient Arts. It's their Superwash Merino nylon 3-ply fingering sock in the flamboyant colorway. And this is what they look like. Whoops, I just about dropped some of that coordinating yarn. So I got the heel done, and now I've put them away for now. So I do believe I've rewound all the yarn, and I do think this is the outside of the yarn that I'm knitting from, and the darker yarn is now in the center. So I do think the pair will end up looking more like each other than was going to be the case, because if you remember, this was quite a bit paler, less saturated areas of pink than was at the beginning of the skein. So I figured if I got them as far as the heel and put them away, then that would be an easy pair to pick up if I happen to be at an awkward place on my other pair at some point, or, you know, needed that mindless project that maybe just wasn't quite at the right stage. So then I did put those down and pick up my February socks, and they are from the yarn from Crafty Jack's Boutique. It's their Tough and Tender base. And this is a 90% superwash Targhee yarn with 10% nylon, or Targhee wool, I should say. And it's the Beachcomber colorway. So I bought this at Knit City in the fall. I was just intrigued by the base and thought I would give it a try. And it has a really nice feel to it. So this is how it's knitting up so far. This is what it looks like in the skein. So I had some struggles with this. If you know anything about me, well, if you've watched for a while, you'll know this. If you're new, you won't. But I'm really particular about my yarns and how they knit up. I do not like pooling. I like my color to, you know, be as evenly distributed as possible in a pleasing way. And I could not get this yarn to cooperate. So I tried first of all my usual 64 stitches on a 2mm needle, and that's what I knit my other socks on. And that was pooling. And then I tried 60 stitches on a 2.25mm needle, and it looked like it was gonna pool too. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll try a patterned sock, and there's one that I made years ago and they finally wore out. I had made them out of Fleece Artist, and they were called the Balance socks, and I started those. It was pooling on there, so then I decided to give the 60 stitches on a 2.25mm needle another try. And at first I thought it wasn't going to work, because that's what the cuff looked like. So you can see all the colors pooled here, and then there's this big blotch of blue. But I thought I would just give it a chance and start knitting. And I'm much happier with it than I thought it was going to be. It's not 100% how I like my yarns to knit up, but it's definitely fine. And so this has now become, you know, my main plain knitting. So yeah, a little departure. The yarn's a little bit heavier than some fingerings, which is why I decided to try the 60 stitches on a 2.25mm. Excuse me. It's certainly a dense enough fabric. I'm not worried about them being too loose at all. And yeah, I can live with that. So whoops. So there, that's as far as I've gotten. I will most likely do a short row heel on these. I might even take yarn from the other end of the ball so as not to disrupt how they are, you know, pooling. Or you can see even here, though it looks kind of dark, it looks even a little different. I don't know. They'll be fine. In the end, honestly, I don't know why I worry so much, because in the end they're on my feet and, you know, under my pant leg and in my shoe or my slipper or my boot. So it's not like other people actually see them, but I see them. I want them to be a certain way. So, one more work in progress. I have made a little bit more progress. I'm just flipping my show notes over here. Oops, and moving the camera. I made a little more progress on my Ashland sweater. This is a pattern by Julie Hoover for Brooklyn Tweed, and I'm knitting mine in Brooklyn Tweed Loft, which is the fingering sport weight version. And it's interesting, I was looking at these labels. This is an old label, so it just says 100% American wool. This one says American Tarkey and Columbia wool. And the prices were quite a bit different too. I originally paid $16.95 and now they are up to $21.95 Canadian, that is. So I am using 4 colors. The main color is green, is button jar, and then, well, why don't I show you? So green, button jar. The gold is harvest. Purple is thistle, and then the orange is embers. So if you've been following my progress, you will see that I have reached a significant step, and that is that the body is 100% done. And I have begun the sleeve. So I started this yesterday actually. Did the ribbing, and then I am now ready for my second color repeat, or color pattern, I should say, stitch pattern. So I have a little bit of a concern about the sleeve. I was thinking that the pattern would start at the same place as it does on the hem, which is, there's the bottom ribbing, and then there's just a small amount of space here. Whoops, I've got some thread. Well, we are in my craft room. I'm sure I've just picked up some. I'm trying to find a place to put it. There's the garbage over there. Yeah, so anyway, I thought it was going to start right as this one did. I thought it would look the same, but in fact they start their pattern a little bit further along, and that's because the length of the sleeve is a little bit longer than the length is supposed to be from the underarm to the bottom of the sweater. But I measured it, and this is really about the length I would normally knit. However, because of the way all of the increases are positioned, they're all taking place on plain rounds, and I considered maybe trying to rework them, and then I thought just go with the pattern, because worst case scenario, if this sleeve ends up a little bit too long, guess what, you can turn up the cuff, not a problem. And sometimes I have knit my sleeves and wished they were a little bit longer. And so, you know, it has an easy solution if it ends up being a little bit too long. I'll just roll the cuff back, no biggie. So yeah, pleased to get that started. I'm kind of anxious to get this project done and move on with it. So, had my little steek cutting adventure. This pattern is knit from the bottom up all the way to the armpits. You bind off, and then you immediately cast on back on again, and you work in the round again, and you have a steek. And then once the color work's done, you bind off the steek, and then you just continue to work back and forth separately for the back and front. And so when you're finished, you need to cut the steek in order to open up the armhole. So I did that, and as you can see, I've added the neck band also. So this body is completely finished. And I thought you might be interested to see what it looks like on and to hear my thoughts about how it looks, how it fits, etc. So I recorded a little segment about that, and I'm going to put that in now. And then when that's done, I am going to come back with some acquisitions. All right, so here's a look at my Ashland in progress. The body is complete. All it needs is sleeves. First thing I'll do is give you a little spin so you can see it from all angles. Now, what do I like about this sweater? I'm going to come a little bit closer and show you a few things. One thing I really like is the neckline. I think it's the perfect width and depth, and I really like how it lays nice and flat on my body. The pattern called for a tubular bind off, but I did Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off. I also like where the armhole sits. It lines up more or less with the seams on my t-shirt, and I really like that it's not too deep. Looks like there's some extra fabric in here, and that's because there is. Those are the steek stitches, and so those will get seamed in when I put in the sleeves, and so the armhole will sit more or less like this. I do think that I have chose the right size for my bust. I feel like it fits just right around the bust line. And I really like the color work. I'm happy with my final choices for the color work, and I really like how it looks. What I'm not so crazy about, and I've spoken about this in prior episodes, my impression was that this was a more traditionally shaped sweater, in that I thought that the bust and the hips would be more or less the equal number of stitches, and that you would decrease to come in for the waist and then increase and come out for the bust. And in fact, you do decrease for the waist, but then you only increase once for the bust. And the result is that there's quite a bit more fabric at the bottom of the sweater than there is at the bust line. By the time I realized that, I was just too far into it. I did not want to take it out and redo the ribbing, and I didn't want to do the math to make it all work with the color work. In retrospect, maybe I should have, and I probably would be happier overall. As it is, it doesn't look terrible like this, especially from the front, and I think from the back it does look pretty good too. Here's my concern. There seems to be an awful lot of extra fabric here, and it doesn't really do anything for my shape. I have quite a straight figure. I don't have much of a waist, and so I try and construct garments that at least give me the illusion of one, and this one doesn't really do that. Having said that, I think when it's blocked that this body part is going to lay flatter, because when I lay the sweater down, and also, you know, when I fold it up and put it away in my drawer, it's going to end up almost with creases on the sides. And I'm thinking that will draw the sweater in more, and that definitely will take up some of that extra fabric in the back. I also think that when the sleeves are on, that it will also help to balance the sweater out. The sleeves of my t-shirt are much thinner and finer than the fabric that is used in the sleeves. Plus the sleeves will have stripes on them too, and I just think that it will just overall look more balanced. So I don't think I can really judge anything until the sleeves are done and sewn in and the sweater's blocked. But I just thought that might be the best way to talk about this today, give you a sense of what it looks when it's on my body. My first acquisition is a belated Christmas gift from my brother-in-law, and my sister just dropped it off earlier today. It is a fringe twister from Ashford. So if you don't know what a fringe twister is, it is a tool that you use to make twisted fringe on your weaving. So this is just a commercial scarf, but you can see how the ends have been twisted. And that just obviously gives you some fringe, but it also helps prevent the weaving from unraveling, and also it prevents the various threads from untwisting and unraveling and kind of getting, you know, unsightly. So it's something you mount to the table, pardon me, with this combination of wood and a block here. And then it looks like this. It has these alligator clips on them, and then you attach your ends to it, and then it has this mechanism that turns and you can twist them. So I brought a scarf here that I've woven. It doesn't have twisted fringe, but I thought I could use it to show you. In fact, I used it to show my sister how it worked. So when you do a twisted fringe, you will take some of the fringes, like you'll divide them in half, and you'll twist, 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 twist in one direction, both sections. And then when they're tightly twisted, then you twist them together in the opposite direction. And because you've put all that twist in them to start with, when you twist them back on themselves, they don't come untwisted. So what you'll do is attach, so if I was to do 2 and 2, let's say, so I would attach 2 of the fringes. I guess I would do 4 if I was going to do 2 groups. And then, yeah, you would just twist, 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 twist in one direction. I can't know if you can tell, but those ends are getting twisted. It's a little awkward to do it holding it up like this. There, I hope you can tell. Now they're twisting. And actually what I'm seeing is they're twisting together at the same time. I am not sure if that's the idea, is that you can then do both steps at once, but I will look into it. And anyway, it'll save me manually doing this, which is what I end up doing. So anxious to give that a try. My second acquisition also arrived today. It came in the mail this morning, and it is the third and final installment of the Fiber Nymph Dye Works Encore Yarn and Fiber Club. So I bought and paid for this last year, but haven't received it until now. So it doesn't really count as new yarn in my books. Anyway, still haven't bought any new yarn this year, but I cut off the top of the package, but I haven't peeked, so I thought maybe it'd be fun to open it while I record so you can see it at the same time I do. All right, so always wrapped up so nicely. Don't you love that tissue paper? I've tried to save it from other shipments, but it doesn't really save very well. So let's find out. I have no idea what club this is. I have no idea about any of it. So let's see. Oh, it's the T for 2 Encore, and the name of the colorway is Cuddle Time. So it said the tea I chose as inspiration for this month's yarn and fiber is Cuddle Time from Plum Deluxe Tea. This tea blend is a personal favorite here at the Mountain House, but it's especially lovely at this time of year when the cold outside encourages us to cuddle up in the warmth and enjoy some knitting, spinning, and a warm bevy. The colors of the tea ingredients were the starting point for my colorway, but I deviated a bit to incorporate a slightly different color scheme that felt especially soft and cuddly to me. I hope you'll enjoy both the tea as well as your yarn fiber. So, let's see. Oh, I should show you, there was a picture of the tea there too. So it gives me a sense of what it might be. Oh, and she's even provided some of the tea also. There, you can get a really good look at what the tea looks like. Awesome. And look at this yard. Oh, I love it. Oh, I love it. Look at that. Oh, look at that. So it's a mountain tweed BFL base. It says it has 6 stripes, so you can see there's like this yellow and green. Looks like a natural color. And then look at these pinky tones in there. Oh, Lisa, I love it. I love it. This will probably be my next cat. Oh no, I'll have to see see how far I get on my February socks before I talk about casting on another pair of socks. But oh, I adore it. So it's been great. I actually have incorporated both of the other skeins from this Encore yarn club into my personal sock yarn club for the year. So I know the first one was based on apple strudels, and I've put that sometime in the fall. And another one was based on a cocktail, and I've got that, I think, coming up in the summer. So at least I can knit one of the skeins from the club sooner than that. So I can't wait. These are just gorgeous. Love it. Oh, I love it. I'm so happy. Yay. Who doesn't love new yarn? And you know, whenever you do a club, you're letting, obviously, your control, you have to let it go. And I think we've all experienced sometimes when what we receive is not really what we would have chosen for ourselves. But I have to say, every shipment of this club I have loved, so that's awesome. Like I said earlier, we got together with family and friends this weekend. One outing had been planned, but the other was more spontaneous. So as I had mentioned last episode, our granddaughter had turned 17, and the way that she wanted to celebrate was to have everyone in the family over to play games. So that's what we did on Friday night. I think last week I said it was an app on your phone, but it's actually a website called Jackbox TV, and you play using your phone. So my son-in-law brought up the website on their TV so that everybody could see it. And then on your phone, you go to that website, and then you're given a room code to sign in with, and then you're all together in this virtual room. You have your name and picture that shows up, and then you can see the scores as they're tallied and things like that. But you use your phone to play. You're given questions and prompts and things on your phone, and then once you submit your answers or your drawings or your feedback, then it ends up later on being shared with the people in the room when it's relevant. So it's a good interactive game, and it was good for everybody there. My younger son took our younger granddaughter as his partner, and so they sat together. He had it on his tablet, and then she was able to type some things and draw some things. Originally, our grandson was off in the kitchen where the snacks were, playing a video game, but then he eventually came and joined us too, and he was able to play by himself using his tablet. So yeah, I mean, it can go different levels if you're all adults. You definitely can take it to a different level of, well, you know, the kind of language or the kind of subjects that you use, but it also can be family friendly. So we had a good time there and got home fairly late, but that didn't keep us from staying up even later. And we, I think we watched some Olympic curling that night. And then the next day we had some errands to run, and we had just planned on chilling for the rest of the day and evening, but we heard from some old friends of ours asking us if we wanted to come over and play cards with them. And every time that these friends have asked us, we've always had something else going on. So it was cool to actually be free. And so yeah, we said yes. We said we'll bring some snacks over, and we went over after supper. And I guess we last saw them back in November, but it was as part of a group, so we didn't get a really good chance to catch up. So we spent the first half of the evening just chatting and catching up on each other's lives and families and things. And then we did play a game. So it's a game called Sequence, and it is, I know it as Gimme 5. It's something that my parents learned, I think, from my aunt and uncle years ago up at the cabin, and then they actually made us each game board for it. Now, our friends had an official game board for this game called Sequence, but they also had a homemade one that they had gotten from their neighbors. Yeah, but the gist of the game is the same. You have you have 2 decks of cards, and you have poker chips in 2 different colors, and you are trying to get 5 things in a row covered. Now, their board looked different than ours did, and I guess there are different sequence boards that you can make up. Theirs was rectangular, and the cards were in different places, but the gist was the same. You have to cover 5 of them. You take turns. You have cards in your hand, and you play a card. You put your poker chip on the card, and then jacks, one-eyed. If you have a one-eyed jack, you'll see there's no jacks on the board. If you have a one-eyed jack, you can take a chip off of anywhere, and if you have a two-eyed jack, you can put a chip on anywhere. So we play that you have to have 3 rows of 5 to win. They just had 2 rows of 5. So we played in couples while Cameron played with our female friend, and I played with her husband, and it was just a great easy game to play. You can still chat while you're playing, so you don't have to think too much, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. So if you're looking for an idea for a game, look up Sequence on the internet. Our friends were saying they have multiple boards and multiple ways to play. This was just made using a pack of, I guess this is an official one, but my parents made a board up using playing cards. No, this one is homemade. Maybe they just copied the board. I'm not sure, because at the back you can see, I think it's just like a ceiling tile or something. I know some of the ones I've seen that they made are actual playing cards that they cut out and overlapped on the board. Anyway, fun game if you're looking for a way to pass the time. So after we played that, we made our way down to the front door, where we proceeded to talk and talk and talk and talk. And our friend, she's a really good talker. It's hard to get a word in edgewise sometimes. Anyway, it was 1:45 when we left. So we had 2 late nights in a row. We were dragging our heels on Sunday, but we didn't do very much. We just ended up watching some curling and some Olympics, I guess, that day. And that's about all we've been doing this week. The last couple nights, Cameron's come home. We've had dinner and just watched some Olympics on TV. We've been recording a lot. I keep thinking, oh, maybe I'll go and watch more of it during the day, but I'm finding that I just have other things that I've been doing instead. So we're just kind of watching it in little bits and pieces. Last night we watched the women's hockey game. That was Canada versus US. So we won. Yay! No offense to my American friends. It's a good, healthy rivalry. But we go on now to the next stage. Unfortunately, our mixed doubles curling did not go so well. Literally, our team lost in the last play of the last game by millimeters, so they did not go on to the finals or semifinals. Win some, lose some, right? Now that it's time for something good, I've realized that I forgot to write anything down in the show notes. But I think it's fitting that this week's something good is playing games. It's not something we do together as a couple very often, but occasionally we get in the mood to play cards, usually crib or rummy. Growing up, it's something we did a lot of, both card games and board games, especially at the cabin. And that is something that continues to happen most evenings after people have finished dinner and gone for a walk. You'll find a group sitting around the kitchen table playing cards or Yahtzee or the occasional board game. And sometimes the whole group gets involved, you know, in a game that you can play with teams like Trivial Pursuit or something like that. We had a weekly game night with our kids as they were growing up. So a lot of times by the end of the night, the kids were getting restless and kind of getting at each other. So it wasn't always the most harmonious family time, but we did think that it was important to come together as a family at least once a week. And it's, you know, playing games is a good way for kids to learn to be, you know, good losers as well as good winners. Our grandkids all like playing games. We have a couple here that have gone through our kids and all our grandkids, and they are still hanging in there. One is Candyland. Another is a set of 4 Disney themed games that came in a box for $10. It's probably the best $10 I ever spent. Those games have been played with to such an extent that the boards, which fold in 4, have like come apart and have had to be reattached with tape. And all the little pieces are in individual little Ziploc baggies to keep them separated. And the instructions have been folded and taped and stuff, but they're simple games, but the kids love them. My dad, bless his heart, numerous times while I was growing up would play Monopoly with me in the evenings, when I am positive he would have much rather have been sitting in front of the TV watching a hockey game or something. I've always loved Monopoly, and our grandson also likes Monopoly, so that's something we've been able to play together. So yeah, I just think games in general, card games or board games, are a fun way to spend time together, and I don't know if people do it as much as we used to, but it's definitely, we've spent many fun times playing games, and I'm sure you all have too. Okay, on that happy note, it is time to say goodbye for another week. I hope that you have a good week ahead of you, that you will have plenty of time to indulge in the things that you love to do. So I will see you hopefully around this time next week. So take care until then, and thanks for watching. Bye.